So, Charlie, we've talked about some of the preparations people could do on the interior of the home, but what about the exterior, the curb appeal of a home? What should sellers be doing to prepare?
Landscaping, clearly, that's probably the low-hanging fruit. Real easy. Call your landscaper in, fresh mulch in the bed, weed the beds. It's maintenance all the way. And then, depending on the time of year, you could maybe put some flowers in the ground, something like that. Anything, you trim the hedges, all that. Neat and presentable, just like the interior you want it to be, show. And of course, that's your first impression, so that's a big deal. Walking up to the door is a big deal. So sometimes, I was at a house we were preparing for a listing, and the kids drew on the front steps.
Like chalk?
It wasn't chalk, actually. Somehow it was paint or something.
Oh, no.
So we had to, get them to remove that, because this is your first impression of the house. You don't want to...
Yes, 100%.
Little paint on the kids' room and the walls, probably no big deal, but walking, in the pathway into the house, no one wants to see that.
Yeah.
So the other things, you're not going to do any major work to the particular home, maybe outside of paint on the exterior if it needed it. Perhaps colors, if it did need that, we would certainly choose colors that were applicable. We don't really have situations in Greenwich where, I can't even think of one where the house was such a wild color that we had to paint the house.
Yeah.
So
generally painting the house is only really if the paint's in poor condition, or it's some neon crazy
color, which is not, really the case here.
Often,
but So, but we often do things like have the shutters painted, take the shutters down, paint the shutters, put those back up, type thing, paint the front door. Again, we're assuming the body of the house is a reasonable, neutral-ish color that we can work with and
make these certain elements pop.
Yep. We pick a custom color for that front door and for that particular home, and what we think, would excite the buyers. And beyond that, from my perspective, there's not a lot that we probably would do in repairs. Clearly, repairs are just a constant when you sell a home. Anything real obvious, shutter falling off the house, that needs to be fixed. Creaky door, locks not working properly. Think first impression. You don't want to turn somebody off before they even get inside. They're already
landscaped well-groomed garden, whatever. That makes sense. To go back to the colors thing, there's all these talk about like the psychology of colors. Blue is comforting, red is intense. Is there best colors to use, or is it just to match the main color of the home?
Two answers to that question. I think the best color is the one that makes sense for that house, and I think that's a design perspective. So I do that all the time. We pick out the right color for the body of the home, or for whatever the how the home presents itself. And then the other way to look at it is, what does that color mean? Generally, that's a red.
Interesting.
For the front door, I'm assuming, clearly not the body of the house, right? But the front door usually, and the reason for the red is simple. It's exciting. It gets the heart going. And so if we can get them a little bit more excited, as they come into the home, and if red was appropriate for the rest of the home, and the color is on the rest of the home. Of course, it's got to
match.
I would prefer to lean in that direction. Generally, that's my first go-to, but it's not a blanket statement. Sometimes it's a black door and that looks best.
Of course.
If you like this video, YouTube thinks you'll like one of these.